Welcome to the Good Talk Podcast, where we remind you of the joy of life, the love of God, and the possibilities that lie ahead. Pete and Jordan here.
Episode 38, a final week of exploring the Enneagram.
Oh, yeah. And then we haven't announced this yet, but we have this episode. We're going to do one more episode, and then we're going to take a little time off.
Yeah, not a lot, but we're wrapping up season 1. I feel like it's appropriate timing because
You're about to give birth.
I'm about to give birth to a baby. But yeah, so we will be wrapping up season 1. We're just going to take a little bit of time off. And we'll obviously let you guys know when we're coming back. It's not going to be forever or super long, but we're just going to take some time off this summer to transition.
Yeah, we're shooting for 4 weeks.
Yeah, we're going to do 4 weeks. And so 4 weeks off. You guys don't have to listen to us for 4 weeks. And we'll start up season 2 and we already have some really exciting, fun things planned. So
I can't wait for season 2.
Yeah. So hey, follow us. We'll say this next episode too, but follow us on social media because that's kind of where we really update on when things are coming out and if there's new things happening. Not just personally, but with the podcast and stuff. So check us out on Instagram. If you don't, that's really kind of where we live. That's the only place. You're on Facebook a little bit, but Instagram is kind of our jam. So, but other than that, today we're going through 7, 8, and 9 types. Again, if you haven't listened to episode 36 and 37, where we talk through 1 through 6, check those out first because that's going to give you some foundational knowledge. And then we're going to talk through 7, 8, 9. And then you also talk to Ainsley at the very end about kind of the different relationship type, what numbers go well together, maybe which ones don't go super well together, just historically. So I think that's interesting. But
it's very, and bottom line is this, it is such an important relationship tool for all your relationships. But if you're in any kind of serious relationship, dating somebody, engaged,
friendships,
married,
even,
you need to know the other person's number because it absolutely impacts the dynamics of the relationship. And you and I are diving a little bit deeper right now. We've known for a long time. We were both 3s, but we really hadn't dove into what that means when 2 3s are together, and how do we know when we're in a healthy place, when we're in unhealth,
right?
And you've done a little research on it. Yeah,
and Ainsley would be able to speak to this much better than we can, but just since we're both 3s, I was like, let's just dive right into just that specific one. So 3s again are the achievers, so we're very performance driven, success driven. And they made a very clear distinction in a lot of the research I was reading, and they were like, the health of these people completely dictates the negative and positive elements of having, what if the same type. But when you are in a relationship with somebody of the same type, you kind of both bring the same thing to the table,
right?
Which can be really good because they said a lot of the research show that's a lot of the reason for your immediate attraction is because you see qualities of yourself in somebody else, which, we're all vain at the center of our being. And so it's oh, I like you because you're like me. But in the same time, our weaknesses are very similar too. So, or I think you mentioned this with Ainsley, you're almost blind to your own faults because neither of you recognize that in each other because you don't see that as a negative. Anyway,
we could hold hands, right, and take ourselves down to a pit, and
exactly.
not realize it.
Woohoo! So I was reading the healthy parts: high regard for achievement. We make an effective team. Mm-hmm. Both hard workers and both very social.
Yep.
But then, this is very true. Tasks at home are highly coordinated, and your days are highly constructed, constructed and routine, which is so true. We'll get up and be okay, this would drive some people crazy. They're probably I would hate to be married to you, each of us, not you. But we'll get up and we're okay, from 7 to 8, we're going to exercise. We're going to get back, and around 8:30, I'll jump in the shower. Then you'll jump in the shower. And then 9:30 or 10, we're going to do this. And then we'll go to Home Depot, get the plants. We'll all be done by 12. And then we're going to we have the day mapped out, and we have what each person's tasks are doing and all of that. So it makes so much sense when you read it. And then the unhealth part is the biggest part, which is actually, I've had this conversation with you recently, is you can almost become competitive with the other person, and not you and I aren't competitive in trying to outperform the other, but you can, some of the insecurities that can come up in a relationship with 2 3s is that one person isn't maybe contributing as much. Like my insecurity could be, oh, I feel like I'm not bringing enough to the table. Or if I didn't do the laundry like I said I was going to do, he didn't even have to say anything. Like I could feel,
beat yourself up.
Yeah, I could feel like I didn't perform today. Like I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Hey, you're bringing a lot to the table right now.
A lot in this midsection.
If you're watching on YouTube, I think it's the cutest shirt ever. It says Mama Bear.
A friend gave it to me.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really tight right now. But thank you. No, so but that's a very 3 thing. So anyway, all that to say, look up your type and then also like your partner's type or your friend's type, whoever you're in a relationship with. I think it's super interesting. And I actually had just Googled like Enneagram 3, married to Enneagram 3, and it tells you everything. So look that up. It's really interesting. I think it's good to know. It's to have a good awareness of kind of your situation.
Yeah, this is a good one. I really like because 7, 8s, and 9s are interesting. I confessed last week and go even deeper into it this week. I don't like 8s. Those of you who are 8s, I don't like you.
You didn't think you liked 8s because you only had a view of negative, like the unhealthy 8s.
Yeah. And then I also, she helped me do this. I came to this realization talking about 8s that actually it's not that I dislike them. I'm probably jealous of them. I wish I had a little more of what those 8s have, that ability to just be a truth teller, say it like it is, be very direct. I wish I had a little more of that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's what I think was making me look at them in a very suspicious way.
Yeah. No, I get that.
It's great, though. You guys are going to love this.
Yeah, so Ainsley Britain, once again, in every episode, she tells you how to take her test. Make sure you do that, ainsleybritain.com/Enneagram. And so she's got a bunch of great resources, but we're really excited to have her on for this 3rd week of exploring the Enneagram. So without further ado, your conversation with Ainsley Britain.
All right, Ainsley, you're back for our 3rd episode on the Enneagram. You've been awesome. Thank you so much for all the time that you've given us. And we've been walking through these different types, right? So we're going to talk about 7, 8, and 9. Yeah. But then I also, at the end, I want to ask you a little bit about relationships. And I want to ask you a little bit about, like, are there certain numbers, like, my wife and I are both 3s. Like, I want to know, is that bad? Is that good? Like, I want to know if there's certain numbers that tend to go really well together in a relationship, but I'll save that for the end.
Sure.
And so we're going to jump into 7, 8, and 9. Before we do that, Ainsley, I know you got a lot going on in your life. You're, a great Enneagram coach, but you also have your own podcast. It's called Wild Confidence. Tell us a little bit about that podcast.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. Our goal with Wild Confidence is to help others find, keep, and share the confidence they found in Christ. So what have they overcome? How did they learn confidence? What did that look like in their lives? And we have had so much fun, and it's just a blast to record. So that is the general idea of Wild Confidence.
That's awesome. And I assume I'm really bad when it comes to like finding podcasts, but I assume that they can find it on iTunes and all the normal places.
Yep. Apple, Spotify, all the things.
Perfect. I love it. All right.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about 7, 8, and 9. If for some reason you're just now listening to this podcast and you haven't listened to the last 2 episodes with Ainsley, you want to go back and hear her talk about all the other types. We also really encourage you to go to her site. I'm going to let you give that address to take the free Enneagram test.
Yep. It's at ainsleybritain.com/Enneagram. You have a free assessment there. You can dive deeper into your own type. You can get information on coaching, or if you want to become a coach, you can also get information on that as well. So it's Ainsley Britain, AINSLEYBRITAIN.com/Enneagram, or the link is in my Instagram bio at Ainsley B.
Perfect.
All the places.
There you go. All the places. All right. So let's jump in. Let's talk about the 7.
Yes. The 7s are our life of the party, friends. They are the enthusiast, the busy, fun-loving type. They're spontaneous, versatile. They can be distractible and scattered for sure. Their basic fear is of being deprived and in pain. Their basic desire is to be satisfied and content and to have their needs fulfilled. So they're going to be the friends that are always down to have a good time.
Right.
Always. Don't even need the details. We'll figure it out when we get there. Let's book the flight. We'll figure it out when we get there. And we need that type in the world. You know, they're the ones that are just keeping us all on our toes and having a good time doing it. And the only bummer is that it's hard for them to have like really deep, serious conversations. It's hard for them to go back and think about painful things, but it's really important that we self-reflect and we sit in those things. So whenever you do have a 7 friend, I would encourage you to create a safe space for them, or, you know, a 7 in your life at all. Create a safe space for them to be the best version of themselves and be able to open up.
Yeah. Do you have to push them a little bit into that? I mean, because it doesn't sound like naturally they just want to go to that deeper place.
Yeah, generally speaking, you might. If they're in a healthy place, they'll be a little bit more open to it. But I always, my friend Lauren is a 7. She is, oh, you'll know it, Lauren Daigle. You know it when you see her.
Yep.
She is the quintessential 7. When I tell you that girl is always down for a good time, it does not matter. She and I have gone cliff jumping. We've swam with alligators. She will get me into the most insane situations. But she is in a place where she is able to have those serious conversations. And so she's kind of my like ideal healthy 7. And I love using her as an example because the way that she sees the world is in a sense of awe.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And 7s do that really well. They see the world in brighter colors, brighter textures, or more dynamic textures. They just see the world differently. And it's really neat to see the world through a 7's eyes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've actually had a couple encounters with her, and I can see exactly what you're talking about, because the first time I met her, I was speaking at this conference and she was helping lead the music, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't, this was kind of before, you know, she is who we know her as today, right?
Yeah.
And I remember she just, I was like, who's this young hippie kind of like carefree kind of, I can't remember, like this was like a camp for students, right? And she had like her hair all braided and crazy. But I've also seen, because it's interesting when you're talking about they don't naturally want to go deep. I was in a kind of a small group setting with her where I had shared something I'd never shared before. It was very hard for me to say these things out loud. And I was so nervous about how everybody in this small group would react. And she made a point to come up to me after that was all said and done. And she was like, hey, listen, I don't know everything you've been through, but I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing that. And I felt really seen and heard by her. And to know now that she's a 7, I know that probably wasn't the most natural thing for her to do, but she's obviously found ways to grow in that, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I love to use her as an example, because you'd think she might be a 4 because of how colorful she is and how creative she is, but she is through and through a 7 and the healthiest 7 I've ever met.
Wow. That's so
easily.
So what it's stress for a 7 looks like what?
Stress. They go to the unhealthy side of the 1. Okay. So that's whenever they start to get perfectionistic and really detail oriented. And like, if a 7 is under stress, they need to know every single detail. They won't necessarily remember it.
Right.
They're usually the friends that don't text back, because they're like, well, I was swinging on a branch. I don't know.
Yeah.
But whenever they are stressed, it's like, oh, I can't be spontaneous and fun. I have to figure this out.
Yeah. I love
that. So
that
is the 1, the unhealthy side of the 1 that the 7 goes to in stress. And then in growth, they actually go to the 5. So that's what you see whenever you kind of hear her going deeper into someone's story. She's getting more knowledge. She's becoming more perceptive and like learning more. She loves to learn. And that's a growth aspect of the 7.
Wow.
So they love to learn things. And that's where that all piece kind of comes in, is in partnership with the childlike, I guess, spirit of the 7 meeting the desire for knowledge and growth.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody kind of has a number that they're like, I wish I had a little more of that in me. And that's probably 7 for me. Like I wish I had a little more of that in my life. And even I kind of teased you last week about I don't like 8s, but they go so contrary to my personality. But if I'm honest, I'm like, I wish I had a little bit of that 8 inside of me as well. The healthy part of it, at least. So
yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the 8s, which I don't like.
You'll like them by the end of this. Don't worry.
Okay.
So 8s are the challenger. They're the powerful, dominating type. They're self-confident, they're decisive, willful, and they are not afraid to be confrontational.
Yep.
Now, their basic fear is of being harmed or controlled by others. And their basic desire is to protect themselves and be in control of their own life and their own destiny. I call 8s jelly beans. They are hard on the outside, but they are just squishy and soft on the inside. Yep. I cannot tell you how many specifically male 8s just that are coming to my mind that I've met that are like big and tough. As soon as a little puppy comes around, as soon as a kid comes around, they turn into a puddle on the floor.
Wow.
I'm like, you are not tough.
Right, exactly. Now, I've heard, you correct me if I'm wrong, or if maybe you've heard this too. I've heard that Donald Trump would be an 8, and at the same time, Mother Teresa was an 8. Have you ever heard that?
I have heard that, actually. I don't know the 100% fact. I could probably guess that Donald Trump is for sure an 8, but I would believe that Mother Teresa would be an 8 too, because of the fierceness of her.
And I use those 2 examples, not that one's right and one's wrong, but just to even inside of a number, how different like somebody might be. Like some people, it's easy to say, oh yeah, of course they're an 8, or of course they're a 3, but it's a little more complex than that. And you can have someone who's like a Mother Teresa and a Donald Trump have the exact same type, and there's a lot of scale when it comes to this thing. I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can get 2 people that look totally opposite on the outside, but their motivations could be the same.
Yeah. Okay. So the 8, tell me a little bit about what growth looks like and what stress looks like for them.
Yeah. So I love the 8 in growth goes to the best parts of a 2. So they are going to be your biggest cheerleaders. They are going to be incredibly helpful with none of the, I don't know, ill intention, if you will. If an 8 is in growth, they will just go to bat for you. Yeah. And I think that it's awesome. I have an 8 friend that has supported me and cheered me on, and is really the person that's like, oh, you don't think you can do that? Do it. Watch it, do it, and then watch.
Yeah. So she's challenged. So that's the challenger part, but challenging you in a positive way.
Yes. Because because she believes in me.
Yeah.
She'll be like, no, you don't get to doubt yourself. You don't get to doubt my friend. You don't get to talk to my friend that way. You can do this. So it is challenging, yes, but it is in a great way. And I just so love that and so appreciate that about the 8s. Now in stress, that they go to the unhealthy parts of the 5. So they will isolate, they will shut down, and they will just, dig into whatever information they need. Now, sometimes it's unhealthy because they dig into the information to debate or to argue or to whatever, but whenever they are really the best version of themselves, they are just confident, and there is nothing to stop a confident 8. And I love that about them. I like you. I used to have an issue with 8s. I just couldn't jive with them. I couldn't figure it out. And it wasn't until I was like, okay, I have to make sure I don't take anything personal from an 8. Like nothing. Wow. They are not trying to be vindictive. They're not trying to be manipulative. they're going to tell you exactly how they feel.
Yep.
That's when I started to appreciate eights.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, that's almost a relief. I don't have to figure you out. You are exactly who you're showing up to be. I don't have to wonder if you like me or not. You're just going to tell me. And if you don't, like, whatever, I don't have to try anymore, you know?
Yeah. No, and I think you're onto something, because I think that's probably why, I say, and I don't like confrontation, and they tend to, be a-okay with confrontation. But
Oh,
I
yeah.
go back to what I was saying earlier. I think part of why I get so mad at eights sometimes, or I'm uncomfortable around them, is because I actually do wish I had a little more of what they have. Like, because again,
Yeah.
as a 3, as I said a couple weeks ago, I can, I can be halfway through a conversation with somebody and be like, I don't believe half of what I just told them, right? Because
Yeah.
I wanted to be accepted by them in that moment. And I wish I had a little more of that 8 that could just say, thanks for sharing. I don't actually believe any of what you just said.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I had some of their courage, some of their guts that they have in different scenarios. And that's probably why I have this reaction towards them that I do, because deep down inside, I'm like, I like that. I wish I had a little more of that.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And it's also, I mean, when your type is very people pleasing or like, charming or whatever, you don't see that in them. You
Right.
kind of see like a whatever attitude. I don't care if you like me or not. It's almost like, wait, I wish I didn't care if people didn't like me or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that I wish I had the freedom that they have to just live their
Yeah.
life and not worry about everybody's opinion. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But then it also creates this empathy for eights for me, thinking about the jelly bean analogy, that they
Yeah.
are soft on the inside.
Yep.
If they feel safe, they will open up, be vulnerable. So, I mean, that's just something I love about the eights too. It may take a lot for them to feel safe, but when they do, they can finally put their guard down, and they're so squishy,
Yeah.
soft and squishy, emotional, all the things.
I love it. I love it. All right. Last number 9.
Last number. Number 9 are sweet, sweet peacemakers. They are the easygoing, self-effacing type. They're receptive, reassuring, agreeable, and can be complacent as well. So their basic fears of loss or separation, and their basic desire is to have inner stability or peace of mind. They're the most go with the flow type. They're the ones that will never vocalize what they want to do for dinner unless they haven't like show their little 8, but because they want you to be okay. They want everyone to be okay. So we talked in the first week about 2s and how, and the thing about 2s is that they can read a person, whoever they're in front of. It's almost like they can read their mind. They can say exactly what the person needs, and they just know. A 9 can read an entire room. It's almost like they absorb the energy of the room. If it's a funeral, they are heartbroken. They are heavy. They feel it. If it's a party, they're excited, but they're a little bit overwhelmed because there's a lot going on. And there's so many different people in the room. It's like they can feel all the people's emotions at once. So a 9's battery can kind of go out pretty fast in social settings because they can just feel it all.
Sure. Do they tend to be introverts?
They can go either way. 9s can go either way. They do, I guess, every 9 I know is probably.
Yep.
But I wouldn't say 1,000%.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, when you think about an introvert, by the truest definition, they tend to recharge by themselves. And I would think for a 9, it'd be really hard for them to recharge with a group of people, because they're like you just said, they're kind of exhausted because they're reading everything in that room. But
some people could recharge like one-on-one.
Yeah.
And that might be okay. I think it's just smaller groups are just way easier for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. What's stress and health look like for them?
Yeah. So the stress of the 9, they go to the unhealthy side of the 6. They get really worst case scenario. They start panicking, a lot of anxiety, that kind of thing. That's what happens whenever they're in a season of stress or in a moment of stress. But in growth, they go towards the healthy side of the 3. So they're going to be the ones that are, driven and excelling in the workplace or in whatever they're doing, which I think is really neat, because I think it's really cool that a person who can read a room can also have that achiever kind of mindset. So they're growing towards that 3, that achiever, that success-oriented type, which is really fun to see a 9 in growth. I love to see it. We love to see it.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It makes a lot of sense. Do we know any celebrity 9s?
Oh yeah, let's see.
I love asking you this question.
Oh, it's so fun. And it's fun to think about just the people around you. Like every time I talk about a type, someone pops in my head.
Yeah.
My friend Blake is an 8. My friend Caroline's a 9. And I'm always thinking about them whenever that happens. So let's see. Ooh, Jack Johnson is a 9. You know that musician?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers.
That makes total sense to me.
Yeah, that one is quintessential for sure. Queen Elizabeth II, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, John F. Kennedy Jr.
Wow, a lot of presidents.
I know. Ron Howard, the director.
Yeah.
Oh, George Lucas. That's kind of surprising to me.
I love. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. All those people.
You have done an amazing job of walking us through these 9 types. It's been incredibly helpful. I have a question that I kind of teased at the beginning I want to ask you about when it comes to relationships, because honestly, this is the thing that's so intriguing to me about these types. Is not just knowing your own type and knowing what it looks like under stress, what it looks like when you're in the growth period, but to also know the people around you and what their types are so that you can better champion them towards growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to relationships, are there certain numbers that you would say like, oh, okay, wow, they tend to pair well, and are there other numbers that you're like, that number and that number, they're gonna have some challenges. So how does it work, or does it work like that?
So that is actually the most common question that I get, and it's so funny. I love answering it, so I'm really glad you asked, because someone was thinking it. I guarantee.
Right, sure.
And the answer is healthy types go best together.
Yep.
If you are in an unhealthy place, you don't need to worry about nobody but yourself.
Right.
You need to be alone with the Lord. You need to fix some things.
Yep.
So no, there's not like 2 types that go best together. There's pros and cons to every single pairing. The thing about like same couple types, like you and Jordan, the only thing that's like hard is that you have the same shadow side, right? You have the same struggles. So if your types don't like to talk about the struggles, it'll be harder to talk about the struggles, because you might want to like kind of stuff them and appear like everything's okay. Same with like, if 2 7s are together, they're not going to want to have real serious conversations. They're probably not going to be incredible with money unless one of them's in growth. But it's just like that. You'll have the same weaknesses if you have 2 couples of the same type. But, on the flip side, if you have like 1s and 7s, they are almost what I would call opposites. It's hard to actually be opposites, but they're pretty close to it, I would say.
Right.
So when the 7 goes to that 1 in stress and the 1 goes to the 7 in growth, they're showing some sides of the other type.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of can create some tension with them.
Yep.
So it's just, but the more you learn about these types, the more you can be like, oh, I can tell that they're in a season of stress or they're not feeling healthy right now. So I need to make sure not to add to that or whatever.
Yep.
That
makes so much sense.
Facilitate a path to growth.
Yeah. I can see how, like, for Jordan and I, who are both 3s, the challenging side of having the same number is that you may not see the unhealth, because you may both be in that, often when we're in unhealth, we somehow find a way to convince ourselves that this is healthy, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and if you have a different number than the other person, it's really easy. Like I've always said, it's so easy to spot unhealth in somebody else, right? But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
both have that same number and the same unhealthy tendencies, I can see where you might like kind of, it's like the alcoholic who wants to be around other alcoholics because then their behavior doesn't seem that off. So I
Exactly.
could see where we just would need to use wisdom, discernment, and like look for all those different warning signs. And to your point, the more you know your type, I think the quicker you can start to identify patterns of unhealth.
Absolutely. And in yourself and the people around you. And your Enneagram coach, they do have a lot of resources for couples and that kind of thing. But the EnneagramInstitute.com actually has where you can click on your type and your significant other's type, and
Yep.
it kind of shows you the compatibility. Now, it's not just, romantic relationships. You could apply this to friendships. You can
Yeah.
apply this to whatever. It just depends on your how close you are to the other person. But yeah, you can also check out misidentification as well. So if you feel like you've tried your type on and you're just like, oh, this doesn't feel right, maybe I'm misidentifying as something else, you can kind of gauge on that website as well. It's just another helpful resource.
Yeah, that's perfect. Ainsley, gosh, this has been so good, like so helpful. I was somewhat familiar with the Enneagram, but I really needed this refresher. And I'm just so passionate right now of trying to figure out, okay, the people I work with and people I live with, like what their numbers are and how we all interact. I think it's a really, really helpful tool, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
You've done an awesome job of explaining it, and really proud of the work you're doing. And one last time, give us your website
Mhm.
so people can go check out all the different resources you have.
Yeah. So that is ainsleybritain.com/Enneagram for the Enneagram information. But the general website has podcast, any writing, speaking information. Everything I do is going to be on that website, ainsleybritain.com. And again, it's in the link in my bio at AinsleyB on Instagram. Or if you're on TikTok, I do only Enneagram content on TikTok. It's meant to be funny. Don't take it too seriously.
That's
It's
great.
called Enneagram and Chill.
I love that. Enneagram and Chill on TikTok. All right. That's great. Listen, you've been fantastic. I am sure in the future we're going to have some more Enneagram stuff come up. I hope that you'd be open to
Yeah,
coming back and joining us, maybe diving a little bit deeper into some of this.
absolutely. I'd love to.
It'd be awesome. Thanks, Ainsley. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.